Welcome back to CKLU 96.7 and get ready to settle in for another edition of Creator Conversations. This is your host, Jess, one of the co-founders of our Creator. And for the last number of weeks, we've been taking you on an adventure to meet all sorts of amazing Sudburyans to give you an insight into the inner workings of the movers and shakers here in our city. Our Creator is an online publication run by a dedicated team of folks who are in love with their hometown. Check out ourcreator.com for updates on events, businesses, product reviews, top 5 lists of anything you can imagine. We've got you covered. While you're at it, look up Our Creator on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram for updates straight to your newsfeed. That's OURCRATER.com. This week on this edition of Creator Conversations, this is quite possibly our tastiest episode yet. Justine Martin is a local entrepreneur who's been baking up custom delights as For Heaven's Bake for the last few years. Educated in marketing by trade, many hours spent binge-watching Cake Boss and a willingness to experiment in the kitchen has led her down a path that she didn't quite expect. Last year, downtown Sudbury hosted their Win This Space competition, which Justine participated in. After many rounds and lots of hard work, Justine and her newly named Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop Bar came out on top. Opening up very, very soon. We'll get to take a sneak peek of the new Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop. Get to enjoy all sorts of goodies there. But in the meantime, now before we're able to sample a few of Justine's delicacies, let's hear from the lady herself and hear all about what we can expect at Guilty Pleasures. This week on this edition of Creator Conversations, we have with us Justine Martin. If you don't know her yet, you will definitely be familiar with her very soon. She'll be opening Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop and Bar very, very shortly in the downtown core in the beginning of February. So Justine, can you start us off by telling us a little bit more about Guilty Pleasures?
Yeah, for sure. So I started out working out of my house doing all sorts of custom baked goods, wedding cakes, baby showers, all sorts of things, and just got way too busy. So I'm turning that into a storefront location now. So we'll continue to do custom stuff. I'm actually already almost booked for all of our summer weddings this year, but we're going to be adding a really exciting element of actually having the storefront, so you can come in and grab a cupcake or a cookie, whatever kind of dessert you want, with a coffee, any day of the week, rather than just placing a custom order when you have a special event. And we're also going to do fresh lunches and be open late on Fridays and Saturdays with some live music. And once we get our license in the spring, we'll have a full bar, so it'll be nice and fun variation on a traditional bakery.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the variety of treats that you'll have in stock at Guilty Pleasures?
Yeah, so my specialty and my favorite thing to do when I'm baking is to experiment with flavors. So my specialty at the shop is uniquely flavored cupcakes. My favorite is French basil. We have other cool flavors like maple bacon bourbon, salted pomegranate, pumpkin spice, a whole bunch of different things. Some of which, like the pumpkin spice, you may have tried before. You may have tried a pumpkin spice latte, something similar, but not necessarily in a cupcake. But then, a lavender rosemary cupcake is probably something that you've never heard of or never tried before.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, I actually don't have a huge sweet tooth, so I tend to try to make my cupcakes a little bit more on the savory end than the sweet side. And I find that a lot of people appreciate that, because if you really want super sweet, there's a few flavors that are for you, but most people like that it's a little bit toned down on the sweetness. I do a lot of salted cupcakes. I just did some salted chocolate bark today, actually, for Valentine's Day. But yeah, so we have that. That's my specialty is the cupcakes. But, we do everything. Macarons, different cookies, pies, just birthday cakes. You can come in off the street on a normal day and say, oh, I forgot that it's my girlfriend's birthday, and, grab a cake that'll feed 10 people for your dinner that night.
And you'll have options available as well for people with dietary restrictions and that type of thing, right?
Yeah, so my goal is every day to have about 10 flavors of cupcakes in the shop. But I always want to have at least one vegan, gluten-free option. that was something I never planned on doing, but when I was doing my custom orders, got so many requests that I realized that obviously there was a need for that here. So I decided to throw that in the mix, and it's been really popular. Even we did the wedding show, the Sudbury Living wedding show last week, and I did one, normal cupcake and one vegan, gluten-free, and there was a lot of brides who super appreciated it because they came in and they were like, either they're dairy-free or they're allergic to eggs or they're gluten-free, whatever, and so there was an option for them, which was nice.
So Guilty Pleasures is not going to be just your kind of traditional sense of a bake shop. It's also meant to be a very social place. So can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, we won't have our license right away, but as soon as I get that in the spring, we're going to be open until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays, and we're going to have live music, kind of acoustic, single person on acoustic, or someone, playing a sax, nice jazzy, atmospheric music, and really kind of at a volume that is conducive to catching up with your friends and having a conversation, and so kind of a space for any kind of gathering that you could want. So you want to go have a glass of wine and catch up with your mom, or you want to have a girls' night out, or have an anniversary dinner with your boyfriend or husband. It's all that's kind of the atmosphere that we're going for. And during the day we have really great specialty coffees and teas, both from pretty local suppliers, which is nice. And so you can come in. We have a really interactive menu system too. So all of the cupcakes that we have a specific pairing for wine, beer, and a custom cocktail that we've developed in-house. So it's really nice and can kind of get you out of your comfort zone, especially with your friends. Everybody gets a different cupcake and cocktail or wine pairing, and then kind of shares it around, gets to try everything. So it's a little bit different than anything else that we have here right now.
That sounds like a great night with your friends. Go have some dinner, and head over to Guilty Pleasures, have a nice cocktail and some dessert or coffee or something like that.
Exactly. Or a specialty coffee with a little bit of cocktail mixed in.
Who knows? Treat yourself. Now, you participated in Downtown Sudbury's Win This Space competition last year in 2017, and in the end, after many rounds and narrowing down the options and reworking business plans, Guilty Pleasures in the end ended up coming out on top and being the winner of Win This Space. So can you tell us more about what exactly it is that you got when you won the competition?
Yeah, for sure. So that competition was super helpful. Like you said, it was a long process. We had to submit a video, go through some workshops, do a business plan, do a Dragon's Den style pitch, and there was a lot of other really great businesses that were also pitching and that did a really great job, some of which are open now, even before me. But so when I won that competition, what I got was a prize package valued at around $45,000. The biggest component of that was that my rent for the first year, up to $15,000, was paid for. And
that's a huge leg up for a new business, really, to have 1 year where you don't have to worry about where you're going to be.
Exactly, and even just the deposits in particular, like paying first and last month's rent, I had to do that in September when I signed my lease, and that's a long time before I'm really making any money at the shop. So not having to worry about that deposit and being able to be in business for 12 months before I have to start making that rent payment every month is super helpful. I also got a few other things that were pretty helpful. Fuel did my logo for free, which was wonderful, and then I was able to develop a pretty good relationship with them.
And the logo looks great, Fuel.
Yeah. And then they did my website too after that. And I got advertising with Sudbury.com and Rogers Radio, and I got, even small things like my business bank account for the year is paid for, and my incorporation, the cost of having a lawyer do my incorporation was covered, my phone line and internet's covered for a year. So lots of little expenses that you don't necessarily think about when you are starting to do something like this that add up really quickly. A lot of those were taken care of, are being taken care of, which is really helpful.
So you won the competition, and so the first thing you did obviously is go out hunting, looking for exactly where the home of Guilty Pleasures is going to be. So I understand you have a location, you're just about ready to open, and it's gone through quite a makeover. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so actually the day after they announced the winner of the competition, I called up a realtor and started going to look at places, going to look at locations. I already had an idea of one that I wanted, but I didn't know what the rent would be, if the square footage would be enough and whatever else, but it ended up, the one that I had originally been thinking about was the one that I ended up choosing rather quickly. I didn't look at a whole bunch of spaces because that one was really quite perfect for me. So we got in there and, we had to wait. There were some delays on getting our construction permits and stuff, but yeah, the space is a total 180. My kitchen is in the basement, which is a space that hasn't been used in that building for a few decades, so that was fun trying to get that up and running and up to code. Like there was carpets down there. Like I think it used to be an apartment, or it must have been, because there was like little closets and it was carpeted and there was a kitchen cupboard in there, and it was so weird. So we tore everything out, all the walls, and just started from scratch. And now, even my baker, when he first came in and saw it, really didn't say anything to me, but I think inside was like lamenting, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to work down here every single day. This is going to be a nightmare. It's so dark and dingy. And now, it's all white walls. It's super bright and clean and, really kind of decorated fun. So now he's like, oh, I didn't see it when we were starting, but, it's perfect. I love it. And then the entire upstairs is customer service area. And we really changed everything. We ripped out all the floors, ripped out all the walls. It's you'll have to, come in and see when it's all done, because it's totally different than what the space used to be.
So what is the address of the new location?
So it's 82 Cedar Street, which is right next to Taco Sol.
And how soon can we start enjoying a Guilty Pleasures treats downtown?
So we don't have an official opening day just yet, but very soon. So the beginning of February, sometime between the first week, and we definitely should be open before Valentine's Day. Barring anything really crazy and unforeseen happening, we should definitely be open in the first couple weeks of February.
In the meantime, if you're looking for any updates, where can our listeners keep up to Guilty Pleasures?
So I actually do a ton of Instagram live videos, updates, all sorts of stuff on our Instagram story for updates about how the store looks, what kind of renos I did that day. So Instagram, which is at GP Bake Shop, is probably the best bet. You can also like our page on Facebook, and we're still posting, pictures of some cakes that we've done in the past that I hadn't gotten around to posting the pictures of for a while. We have quite a backlog of stuff, so we're still posting on there, but most of the updates about the shop are on Instagram.
Perfect. We're going to go ahead into our first segment of music, but then we'll be back very shortly to talk to more with Justine about some of her background in baking. And we are back here on CKLU 96.7 for Creator Conversations. This hour we are talking with Justine Martin. She is the owner of Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop and Bar, the winner of Downtown Sudbury's Win This Space competition from last year. So we've gotten an update from Christine since this interview was recorded, and it looks like we can expect to enjoy some creative cupcakes just in time for Valentine's Day. We'll be talking more with Justine later in the hour, but for now, let's get into some music. We're highlighting a few shows that are coming up in the city this week. So first up, we have Corin Raymond. He is a Toronto-based singer-songwriter, and he is also the recent nominee for Album of the Year at the 2017 Junos. So he'll be playing one of Motley Kitchen's dinner and a show presentations. That's February 9th. The tickets are $55, and you can also get tickets for just the show for $20. This is a presentation in collaboration with Northern Lights Festival Boreal. Next up, there is, presented by Jazz Festival Sudbury, is Amélie and Les Singes Bleus. Sorry, I'm not francophone at all. I'm trying. So this is a really fun group to show. They'll definitely have you up on the dance floor. You can catch that show February 16th. Again, that's 8 o'clock to 10. They'll be playing at Collège Boreal. And you can get tickets right now for that show for $40 advance or $45 at the door. So our first set of music here will be Morning Glories by Corin Raymond and Une Petite Fille by Amélie and Les Singes Bleus.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations. I bet you're expecting some music right now. Turns out the copyright laws even apply to us. Look below for the link to our Spotify playlist and any other links for the music we might have played to this week. Stick around. In just a second, we will be back with the second half of our interview for this week.
That's a wrap for our first half. Again, we just heard Morning Glories by Corin Raymond and Une Petite Fille by Amélie and Les Singes Bleus. Both performers you'll have a chance to catch around town this month. On February 9th, Corin Raymond will be playing dinner and a show at Motley Kitchen, so you can check out Motley Kitchen for some more information on that. That's a presentation with Northern Lights Festival Boreal. And February 16th, Amélie and Les Singes Bleus will be playing at Collège Boreal. That's, again, a presentation in collaboration with Jazz Festival Sudbury. So for more details on that, you can definitely check out Jazz Festival Sudbury. Those tickets are $40 for Amélie et Les Singes, and it is $50 for Corin Raymond, or $20 for just the show. This hour we've been talking with Justine Martin. She is the owner of soon-to-be-open Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop Bar, which will be providing all sorts of creative and tasty cupcakes to the downtown core, but will also be acting as a social gathering place, so a place where you can grab a drink, grab a cocktail, grab a specialty coffee, and also try all sorts of different tasty treats. So we're going to talk a little bit more with Justine, so just hang on a moment, and we will be hearing more about how she got started with all the baking, with her whole baking adventure, and some of her answers to some of our creator conversation questions. We are back again with Creator Conversations. Today we are speaking with Justine Martin, who is the owner and...
I am the bake shop boss at Guilty Pleasures.
The owner and bake shop boss at Guilty Pleasures. Soon to open at their new location, 82 Cedar Street, the very beginning of February. So, Justine, we want to get a little bit of an insight into how you got started with all of this. So can you remember the first cake that you really made and decided that this is something you might like to do?
So actually, my first cake I really didn't even make until I had already begun selling cupcakes, but when I was away at school, I was in Waterloo. I watched a lot of Cake Boss and thought that it was pretty cool, so I started doing some cupcakes and stuff for friends' birthdays and a lot for like school projects. Like if we'd have a presentation, I'd do like themed cupcakes and stuff, which was fun, always funny. But so the first like real cupcakes I made were Alice in Wonderland themed, and they turned out like way better than I had ever expected them to. So then I just kind of started doing them for everything. And then when I moved home to Sudbury, I was living in the apartment underneath my mom's house, and I didn't have a job yet. And one day I decided to make some fall themed cupcakes for fun, and my mom took a bunch of pictures of them, and she was like, "These are so cute, you should sell them." And I vehemently opposed the idea. I'm a pretty big perfectionist, so I thought like I'm never gonna actually be able to give these to have someone pay me for these, because I'm never gonna like them enough to let them leave my own kitchen. And she went against my opposition and posted them on her Facebook page. And her friends started asking me right away to make them cupcakes for parties and birthday or baby showers and stuff. So it just kind of like came about. I had no intention of ever pursuing this as a career. And then I did cupcakes for a while, and only cupcakes because I was terrified to tackle like a fondant cake. I thought that it was going to be an absolute disaster. So the first time I ever did one was for one of my friend's birthdays, and because I figured like if I screwed it up, and it was a surprise, I didn't tell her I was making it. So I was like, if I screw it up, I just won't bring a cake.
Hopefully she'll still be friends with you.
And it won't matter because she'll never know that I did this. And so this is my girlfriend Amanda, and she is a huge Harry Potter fan. So instead of deciding to do like some simple small cake for my first time, I decided I was going to recreate the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter in 3D.
And start small.
Exactly, right? And it actually ended up working out, way better than I expected, and is probably still one of my favorite cakes that I've ever made.
So you said that you weren't really expecting to make baking a career at all for yourself. So what is your background?
So I have a degree in public relations, and I, in particular, was working in sports marketing. So before I started doing this, I worked mainly in hockey. I worked for Hockey Night in Canada. I worked for the Peterborough Petes in the OHL, and I worked for the Ottawa Senators in the NHL, and then kind of expected that that's what I was going to always do. But then I kind of decided I wanted to move back to Sudbury, and there's not a lot of opportunity for that here. So I moved back and was in between gigs, and then this kind of just fell into my lap.
So between gigs, and then just suddenly your career path completely changed.
Yeah. And I got another job in marketing in the meantime, kind of when I was doing a couple orders a month as just a side thing for fun. And it ended up that I got so busy that I had to leave that job so that I could do the baking full time, because it was not something that I could do on the side anymore. There was too much.
So you take all sorts of different requests for all sorts of different cakes for occasions. Can you think of one request that you've gotten that was completely over the top, you totally didn't think you'd be able to do it, but somehow you pulled it off?
That's like every request that I get. Every time that I get a cake, my first reaction is like, oh, great, I got another order. And then my second reaction, when I actually look at what I've agreed to do, is like,
how am I going to do that?
Oh, dear Lord, have I bit off more than I could chew? Like, is this the time that this is not going to work out for me? And I have not had that happen yet, thank God. And, now that happens, that feeling comes by less and less, because I get more inquiries that are similar now than, obviously, my first 100 cakes, they were like 100 different cakes, but then my next 100 cakes, were some variation of something that I'd already made before. I would say, though, that the funniest request that I ever got for a cake, which I made, and it was, so this woman sent me a photo of a cake that was literally a big pile of poo with like flies coming out of it, and it said, "Holy you're old." And then she asked me, I want this exact cake, but can we write, "Holy you're effing old"? And it was for her father-in-law, and I thought that was just like the funniest thing. And he was only turning 50 too, so I was like he was only turning 50, so I was like, that's not even that old, but okay. So I made this cake complete with flies and everything and it's one of my favorites because it's just so funny that whenever I end up seeing a picture of it, like if I'm scrolling through my phone or something, I just like have a little laugh to myself, and then people look around at me like, what are you laughing at? Like, look,
just this cake.
Yeah.
Look, this poop cake.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, since then I've made like Poomoji cakes and stuff, or Poomoji cupcakes, but that just like the holy year old put it over the top, and apparently they had a very fun party. And
well, I guess they must have if this guy had that good of a sense of humor.
That was my thought. I'm like, this would be a party I'd like to be at. Like, you sound like you have a really fun family.
I'll give you a discount. Can I come?
Yeah, exactly. I'll deliver it for free if you just let me stay and hang out.
So because your background is in marketing, and then you've ended up into this so who taught you how to bake and decorate and make these amazing cakes?
No one. I'm self-taught, so really the internet is my teacher and was my teacher and still continues to be. I think it's a lot easier nowadays to like break into a profession that you're not trained in, professionally, because everything is available online. Like all of the tutorials, when I wanted to make that cake, I looked it up and somebody had made that cake before and they had a tutorial online, a step-by-step of how they did it. And, so you never really do it exactly the same, but it definitely gives a super easy starting point to everything, and
gives you kind of the benefit of their trial and error.
Exactly. And, so I have a few like famous bakers or bakeries that post tutorials that I kind of religiously follow and try to keep up. And then I have some subscription services like Craftsy and stuff that I get some tutorials off of. But it was all, I used to bake when I was a kid with my grandmother, but we always did pies and pâte d'œufs and butter tarts, no cakes or cupcakes ever. And no one in my family is a cake decorator, that's for sure. So so it was just kind of something that just happened, and I think it was spurred by shows like Cake Boss and stuff, and then I just started looking online to see how I could do those things myself.
So we're going to move into our Creator Conversations questions, Justine. So these can be a little tough, but don't worry, you'll make it through. So Justine, who would you say is your favorite Sudburyan?
So right now, that's a really difficult question, and that's hard to give an answer to. But right now, I would have to say that my favorite person in Sudbury is Michael Sauvé, who is my head baker. He will be my head baker at the shop. And even now, while he's not technically an employee and he's just a friend of mine right now, somebody who will be working for me, he helps me out with absolutely everything. When we did the wedding show last week, he booked half the week off of his other job and came and helped me make all of the beautiful cakes that we did for display, and spent the whole night with me. And I don't know, we spent like 6 days in a row together, and we're starting to joke that we must be dating because I spend more time with him than anyone else that I know. But and I think we're just perfectly complementary to work together. He's a technically trained pastry chef, and I'm a self-taught baker. So our styles are very different, but they're very complementary. And I can't wait to work with him in the shop every day.
So Justine, what would you say is Sudbury's signature dish?
So, I feel like most people would say like, oh, it's porchetta, or I don't know, something else like that, but I don't like porchetta, so I have to go another direction here. I don't know about a signature dish, because really this is like something that I get made for myself that's not on a menu. But my favorite thing, like, and if I'm ever away from town for a little bit and then I come back, the first thing that I do is go to Pepe's and I do a build your own panini. I really do love the turkey lou panini that they have too, but I get a build your own, and I do prosciutto, arugula, bocconcini, olive oil, salt and pepper. And it's like super simple and pretty like traditional Italian, but it is like the best tasting thing ever. And it doesn't matter if it's 11 o'clock in the morning and it's like a little bit too early for lunch, or if it is 2 o'clock in the morning and I happen to have had a couple drinks and then walk over to Pepe's. Like, that sandwich is just my favorite thing in town.
It hits the spot no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your favorite view in the city?
My favorite view in town, that's a really hard question, but when you're driving, I think it's when you're driving down Paris Street, coming towards downtown in the winter on a nice sunny day, and you can see, right after you pass Science North, you can see everyone skating on the Ramsey Lake path. I make a point whenever I'm driving past, or more when I'm in the passenger seat and someone else is driving, of like I just stare out the window that whole time and look, and sometimes it's like there's two people, and then you kind of like, you know, can make up a little story about like those
They're on
two
a great
little
first
people,
date.
yeah, and you can see how they're like interacting together, and it's super cute. Or there's like 100 people, and you know, it's cool to see everybody kind of enjoying this unique thing that we have in town, and yeah.
So to finish wrap up our hour with Creator Conversations here. So Justine, we are going into now our hot jam sandwich. So this is one where you get to play DJ and you get to tell me a song that you're loving right now, and I will play it for you. So Justine, what would you say is your favorite song?
So I'm like a really old lady, and I pretty much exclusively listen to CBC radio. So I don't have like a song of the moment because I listen to CBC radio all the time. But my favorite song of all time is Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes by Paul Simon, which is a super random one, I know. But yeah, that would be my choice.
There's nothing wrong with Paul Simon. I feel like I remember like Simon and Garfunkel. I didn't realize how much I loved them. I knew a few songs, but then I realized as an adult that this tape that we used to listen to in our car all the time was the greatest hits of Simon and Garfunkel. And so as an adult, when I started like looking up Simon and Garfunkel songs, I was like, I know all of these. Who knew my parents had good taste?
Yeah, my story is kind of similar. My Simon and Garfunkel and Paul Simon solo were my grandmother's favorite. That was my grandmother's favorite music, and I never really kind of realized that before she died. And then when after her, my grandfather had both passed away, I was like 15. I was like 16. And one of the things that I had to do was like go through their old music, all of their like CD and album collection, and there was a Paul Simon CD in the mix, and I don't know why I chose that particular CD to grab out of the bunch, because I didn't know at the time that was her favorite music, and I threw it on. I put it in the CD-ROM part of my computer, my desktop, and listened to that CD for ages, just like over and over again. And it was the Graceland album by Paul Simon, and it's probably my favorite album. I absolutely love it. And it wasn't until afterwards my mom was like, why are you listening to this? And I told her where I found it, and she told me that was my grandmother's favorite music, and then it just kind of was, then I liked it even more.
And then it fit perfectly.
Exactly.
Oh. Well, in keeping with the folk theme, a song that I've been kind of rolling around in my head a lot lately is this song called Road Regrets by Dan Mangan. And so he played a few years ago over at Northern Lights Festival Boreal. And so this whole song is basically, it's called Road Regrets. It's a whole song about him kind of explaining life on the road and like how that can kind of have a toll on your real life back home, and kind of describing what that sensation is like to be away from home and kind of just traveling around and like singing your songs and playing your music places. It's just a good song. So we are gonna throw one more in there at the end. That'll be a bit of a surprise. But otherwise than that, Justine, we are all done with our interview for today. So can you give us a hit one more time when we can, where we can keep up to date on progress for Guilty Pleasures?
So you can keep up with our updates on our Instagram page, which is at GP Bakeshop. Post a lot of Instagram stories and Instagram live videos with little sneak tours of the shop under renovation.
Great. And you can also look up Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop on Facebook too, to keep up to date and keep your eyes peeled, because the location will be opening very soon at the beginning of February.
Yes. Thank you.
And that's the end of our time with Justine. We most certainly hope you will be catching We'll be catching you indulging some of your sweet tooth at their downtown location when they open up next week. That is Guilty Pleasures Bakeshop Bar. Don't forget, there'll be custom cocktail pairings, all that kind of stuff. Entertainment on the weekends. Bring your friends. It's meant to be a social experience. Try a few different things. Swap and trade with your friends. You never know what you're going to try there. She's always going to guarantee, she's going to try to have as many options as she can. And of course also gluten-free and dairy-free options. So we're going to go into our hot jam sandwich here. So we got a few requests from Justine. So for her song, she picked Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes by Paul Simon. My choice was Road Regrets by Dan Magin. And a few weeks ago, we had on the show Haley Short. She is the chair of the Young Professionals Association, and she's also the one of the brains behind She and Her, which congratulations, they've actually just sold out their Women in Leadership Symposium on March 8th. So we're really proud of her for that. But she recommended for her hot jam a song by a band called Borns, and so I've been listening to them all ever since then, and I wanted to give them another shout out. So we're gonna play Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes by Paul Simon, Road Regrets by Dan Magin, and we're gonna play Faded Heart by Borns.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations. I bet you were expecting some music right now. Turns out the copyright laws even apply to us. Look below for the link to our Spotify playlist and any other links for the music we might have played to this week. Stick around. In just a second, we will be back with the second half of our interview for this week.
All right, we are out of time here for this edition of Creator Conversations. So that was, again, Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes by Paul Simon. That was Justine's favorite pick for this week. And then we just cut off a little short, Road Regrets by Dan Magin. Still up on the playlist was Faded Heart by Born, so we will have a playlist on Spotify to correlate with this episode if you keep an eye out on ourcreator.com. You can also check out all our past episodes as well. Those are all up, I believe, to air right now, so you can listen to some of our past guests. Last week we had Nico Toss. Right before that we had also Haley Short. A few other people we've interviewed. We've interviewed Jen McCarroll from Music and Film Motion, Nico Glode, all sorts of different people. So there's definitely lots to listen out for if you are interested to catch up on a few shows. So stay tuned. We're going to play a few commercials here, but then right after that we will have 6 Degrees in the studio.